that is a lot of smoke, and we'll show you exactly where that came from. Just stay tuned. On this episode, we're going to install the Sniper 2 onto Lucky. So you're probably wondering, Sniper, I've heard some crazy stuff about it. The good, the bad, the ugly. Trust me, I have too. I've been on the forums. I've read about it. I've had a couple snipers. I haven't had any issues with them. I'll give you my honest feedback. Are they trash or are they worth the money? We'll find out today, so stay tuned for that. We're also going to install the FLOWMASTER 40 series exhaust onto this truck. So if you're bag or you're lowered and you're trying to figure out how to do the exhaust, we ran this exhaust along the side of the frame and installed those 40 series, and it sounds awesome. You'll hear all the exhaust at the end of the video, so stay tuned for that. But let's go ahead and jump into it. And I just want to say thank you so much for your support, the kindness, the encouragement, all the things. I couldn't do this without you guys. I appreciate it. I love doing this. I love helping people with their build. If you need help with anything, go to the website, simpleC10.co. You can contact me through the contact box, or you can text me, whatever works for you. I just want to help you out, get you the parts that you need, create a plan for your build. But let's hop right into this. I'm excited to get started on it and to show you how this truck sounds and how it runs when we're done. Let's start off by opening this thing up, and we're going to start with the throttle body harness, and this is the brains to the operation. So the one thing that's good about the Holley Sniper is the computer and the fuel injection and everything is in this main piece that you're looking at right here. The fuel lines will hook up to it. It's got a couple different connectors, an interface cable, a 16-pin main connector, a coolant temp sensor, and then the oxygen sensor, but all that plugs directly in to the main throttle body. You guys know that I like easy and simple. Well, this next thing makes it really easy. The power distribution module, all you have to do is run your wires into this fuse box basically, and it will connect everything for you. You run everything from the throttle body into it, and then a power, ground, and remote wire, and you're ready to go. It makes installing this so much easier than running all the wires. One thing that Holley always gets right is the instructions. This quick start manual walks you step by step through how to install the throttle body, how to do the PDM, all the connectors where they connect to, and it also gives you options if you have the external add-ons to this, the distributor, all that kind of stuff. It shows you how to go in and add those items. It also comes with this monitor that you use to adjust your settings. I will give a negative review about this. It's really hard to press the buttons with your finger. They do give you a tiny pen to press the buttons with, but even with that, it's hard to adjust your engine size and all the settings. The Sniper adjusts your fuel by detecting if it's rich or lean through the O2 sensor on your exhaust. So this kit comes with the bracket that you just drill a hole and then you mount the O2 sensor to the exhaust. It's easy to do and you'll be ready to go. Let's get to installing this thing. First, you're going to put your gasket on there. There's not a lot when it comes to installing these on the top. You're going to set it down on there. You're going to bolt it up. I do want to show you here on the throttle body. You can see that there's the throttle cable. I did replace the actual bar. I had a throttle bar, linkage type bar there. I took it off and I bought a gas pedal from Low Car, and I hooked it up with the cable driven throttle and then cut it to size. That works a lot better. You can use a rod here, but I don't think it works as well. If you're running a transmission that requires a kickdown cable, then you're going to want something like this. This is what Holley recommended, and the TV cable or the detent cable, whatever you want to call it, from the 700R4 will connect to that kickdown bracket, and we'll be able to run our transmission. Now we're going to run our fuel line. So my setup's going to be a little bit different than most. I'm running a fuel filter regulator on the frame with a returnless. So I'm just running one line up into the end, and then I'm capping off the other side to have a returnless system. If you have a return line, then you'll run the return line all the way back to your gas tank. But I like to run a returnless, that way I don't have to run two lines all the way to the front and to the back. You can see here I'm just putting the cap on the front one, and I'll put a 90-degree elbow fitting that goes to an AN fitting and then run that back to the fuel tank. Now that we have our fuel lines ran, we're going to focus on the electrical of plugging everything in and get it to the PDM that we're going to mount in the cab. You've got one main wiring harness that I'm pointing at right here, and it's all going to connect into the PDM. So we need to run all the sensors besides the O2 sensor to the PDM right now. I'm going to find the best way to route all of the main wiring harness wires to the PDM inside the cab, and then I'm going to come back and wire up the O2 sensor, the fans, and then also the water temperature sensor. That's what's good about this setup is your fans will kick on depending on the temperature gauge, so it's another perk of having this is it's going to control your fans for you. Here's the main 16-pin harness. So this needs to plug into the throttle body and then run into the firewall into the cab where the fuse block is. So you can run this anywhere. You could have the fuse block, the PDM on the actual firewall. I'm trying to keep everything as clean as I can. I've got those GMSS inner fender covers coming. So I'm going to work all this through where the throttle hole was, and then I'm going to put in the cable a little bit below it in a smaller hole. I had originally planned on putting the PDM behind the glove box, but since the vintage air stuff is going to go there, I think it would fit best right below the factory fuse block. So this is where I ended up mounting it. All right, that's where I mounted it, right here, right under the fuse box. And whenever I put the cap on there, the sniper is going to be upside down, but I'm going to have to get over it because the wires that are coming from the sniper, they all mount up top, so I want them like this. And then the ones on the bottom are going to go to the battery, to the fans and all that. And I'm running the wires over here through that hole along the frame, so they'll all come out the bottom. That's why I did it like that, so these wires can go to the top, these can go out the bottom, and it should cut down on a bunch of wiring and organization and all that. Holly, I just wanted to say thank you for this PDM. This made it so much easier here. So I've plugged all the wires into the PDM. Now I'm going to run a power, a ground, and the 2 wires that run to my fans in the front. When I got the cold case radiator, it came with this wiring harness and also the relay and everything that you need. So I'm just going to use the power and the ground from the kit that it came with, and this works perfect. Again, with this PDM, you don't have to run a relay. That is worked into the actual throttle body itself and then through the wiring. So all I have to do is run the power and ground from the fan to the PDM, and that's it. Next was putting on the radiator hose, and I had to figure out what shape hose to get. So I just kind of did a measurement and went to the part store, and I picked out 3 different upper radiator hose and a couple bottom, and then when I got home I slid it on and it was like a perfect fit. This worked great. You can use a clothes hanger and just bend it to size. Since this was kind of a straighter piece, I knew that it needed a little bit of an angle to go up top. I just went to the part store and eyeballed it, but I got this one right. So when it looks great, so I went ahead and clamped this down to get it ready. Did the same thing for the bottom one. I had to cut it to size a little bit, but once I got all those clamped on, then I moved to the back to hook up the fuel. In addition to controlling the fans, the HOLLEY Sniper 2 controls your fuel pump as well. All you have to do is run a power and ground to the fuel pump, and then that is it. It makes installing this so easy. You'll see a brown wire that's included in the harness. That is for the fuel sender. That way I can run my gas gauge. I just ran all the lines together. You see me hooking it up. I wired in the positive and the ground, and then I loomed them, and then I just zip tied them to the lines that I already had running to the back, and then ran those all the way up to the PDM. The last thing that I had left was installing the distributor and then hooking up the yellow wire to the distributor. In order to test the HOLLEY system, I needed to install the O2 sensor, so Zach from RS Restorations gave me a hand with installing this custom exhaust on this truck. We're installing this exhaust on the side of the frame. So this is going to kick down from the block hugger headers and squeeze in between the control arm and the frame, and then angle out the side of the truck. And this is going to tuck in nicely where it's not going to drag the ground at all the way down. And you can get a better look here of just the angle of it. It fits in there tightly. We got this idea from Hester. There's another video from the No Association build where we installed an exhaust just like this, but it was Black Widow mufflers. So you can go back and watch that. He just lined up the exhaust there and tacked it into place to get the right angle, and then used a couple jack stands to hold the 2.5-inch pipe down the back and tacked it in. We bought a universal stainless exhaust kit from Amazon. It's like $250. It comes with a couple 45s, a couple 90s, everything that you need. And then we bought some FLOWMASTER 40 series, just the original 40 series, put those on the back, put a couple hangers on there, and just welded it all up. This is a very easy exhaust to do. Pretty much anybody can do it. The hardest part is just cutting that front angle off your block hugger headers. If you can get that right, then you can just weld everything up. You kind of get a view of it here, how Zach is welding it all up. But it's one bend and then straight back, and then you can just drop it off before the rear tire. You could also work it over the axle and go all the way out the back of the truck, but my shocks made it a little bit tight to do that, and I didn't want the exhaust too close to my rear tire. Here I'm just drilling the hole in the exhaust and then installing the O2 sensor on there. Went ahead and plugged it in, and then that plug that you see there on the exhaust will plug in to the throttle body. And then that's pretty much it on the Sniper. The way that they've set it up with the PDM and having everything just wired directly to that cut the time in half. We did all of this in one day. I wired up the Sniper, we did the exhaust, and got everything ready in one day, which is awesome. When it came time to start this up, we also had to break the truck in. It was a fresh rebuild, so I had to rev up the truck and leave it at high RPMs for quite a while to break the cam in, to break the engine in. But also this was the first time that the engine had been started or the Sniper had been installed. So there was a lot going on. The first time the fuel pump had kicked on. So this was D-Day. This was the time, the test. So we didn't know what was going to happen.
I'm going to check the time.
So don't buy those headers. These were just some cheapos off of Amazon. They looked really good, but trash.